And at the top of this segment, we have some breaking news coming in from with regards to the IDF. Now, as the IDF forces increase ground operations in Gaza Strip, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken to world leaders, several world leaders, in fact. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, that is on Tuesday, 31st October, held a series of conversations with world leaders. Now, who are they? They include Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulides, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu has updated the leaders on the war and thanked them for their unreserved support for the state of Israel. The Prime Minister also added that Israel's war against Hamas and ISIS is also the war of the entire enlightened world. This is the particular input that we are receiving. Remember, this comes in at a time when the Israeli Defense Forces have constantly been bombarding the entire Gaza region, and their counteroffensive has only been intensifying with each passing day of the war. As you can see the visuals, the rubble that is there all across that area, all across the city, as IDF has only intensified their attacks in the area, their bombings and their constant missiles as well. Amidst all this, Benjamin Netanyahu has thanked all the world leaders who have indeed supported Israel in their fight against Hamas and ISIS, saying that it's a fight for the entire enlightened world as well against these terrorist organizations. Now, we have Abhishek Jha joining us on this broadcast to bring us more details with regards to this particular breaking input that we are getting. Abhishek, comes in this comment, this remark that has been made by Benjamin, these conversations that have been had by Benjamin Netanyahu comes in at a very crucial time, because even the resolution that was there in the UN had at some point condemned the humanitarian crisis that is ongoing in Gaza. How are we looking at this particular remark made by him?
Well, from the Israeli point of view, whatever is happening in Gaza is a result of what has happened to the Israelis on 7th of October. That was a terrorist attack, a massacre, a situation which was unprecedented in the history of Israel, when 1,400 people, Israeli people, were killed. They were summarily executed. Friends, families, kids, youngsters, soldiers, none were spared, and it was an indiscriminate and mindless killing that has happened to the Israelis. And what is happening now in Gaza? The Gazan authorities tell that about 8,000 people have been killed in the last 25 days or so of the counteroffensive that Israel has launched. About 4,000 of them are believed to be the children. There is a huge humanitarian crisis that has also attracted the attention of the world when the countries from around the world are pouring in their help and assistance aid through the Egyptian borders for the people of Gaza. But Israelis are very steadfast and very, in a way, very nonchalant, as the world is trying to condemn what is happening in the Gaza, and they are trying to take note of that. Israelis continue to say that they are targeting only Hamas terrorists, but whatever civil casualty is happening is because Hamas is using humans in Gaza as a human shield. So this is what the Israeli perspective has been. We have seen the world leaders, especially the European leaders, also engaging with Netanyahu. And yesterday also Netanyahu spoke with some of the European leaders and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of UK as well. We are going to have Secretary Blinken of USA on Friday in Israel. From there, he is also expected to move to other neighboring countries to kind of talk down the situation, not let it escalate. So a lot of diplomacy is happening, but Israel continues to be very firm on its grounding that its counteroffensive will go on as long as it takes, and as long as Hamas terror network is not entirely demolished. It may come at a very high cost of civilian casualty, but that's it. That's the rule of the war, and that is what Israeli perspective has been.
So, Abhishek, even at this juncture, especially when earlier today we had also broken this information to our viewers that Hamas has now said that they are going to release the hostages in a few days. Even at this juncture, the Israeli government is still keen on continuing with this counteroffensive they have launched, this despite the humanitarian crisis that is ongoing there, and with several nations including the US having voiced their concerns with regards to the crisis that is underway there.
Well, if you say, the human lives or the suffering that is happening in Gaza and that has happened in Israel, they have reduced to just numbers. And when 1,400 Israelis were killed, now the 8,000 people in Gaza are supposed to have been killed. So the 230 about hostages that are still in the captivity of Hamas, Israel never wanted Hamas to have an armed twisting capability because of the hostages they are having from the Israeli side. Since the beginning, they were very firm that the ground offensive will happen at any cost. All the entire network of Hamas will have to be demolished for the long-term and sustainable peace and stability in the region. That was a very firm standing of the Israeli government led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Though the world leaders did try to push or pressurize Israeli government not to go ahead full steam because of the hostage crisis, they are trying to negotiate. In fact, a couple of days ago, it was reported by some of the local media that Israeli government is lowering down its fight or its counter offensive against Hamas because there is some negotiations happening to free some of the hostages. That doesn't look like happening, even though world leaders are concerned about the humanitarian crisis and the hostage crisis in Hamas. And there are some reports that negotiations are happening. The fight on ground continues unabated. Israeli ground offensive with hundreds of tanks and thousands of soldiers in the southern Gaza have already started. It's been almost 3 4 days since the ground invasion has started. They are literally going house to house and trying to find out if any Hamas operative is left in these regions. First, they have already demolished the entire region with airstrikes and ensured that there are very less number of Hamas fighters or resistance from the fighters in that region. But with the ground offensive and the escalated momentum that the Israeli military has created against Hamas terrorists, it doesn't look like they are going to be burst down with the hostage crisis because it's been almost 25 days. There has been negotiations going on. A couple of hostages have been freed also. But will that be a bargaining point for the Hamas through which they can arm to Israeli counteroffensive? That doesn't look like to be happening right now.